We're going to go ahead and start with the pledge. And I always need help from Brett. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thanks, everybody. We had another very nice commendation ceremony at about 5:30, which rolls us into a late start for our meeting, and so our exec session. And so we're back in our open forum, and more is breaking things. We're back from exec, and we're in open session. And modifications, anyone? If the guy want to modify anything? No, you're all good. All right. So public comments, did anyone sign up? Anyone wish to speak? Students that are here that are just opportunity to speak to the world on TV? You're all good? All right. So we'll keep moving on. So that rolls us right into student reps and LECS.
Okay, thank you. This past weekend, the New Orleans-bound Hurricane Katrina relief trip hosted their Great Gatsby themed gala, called at La Tourelle. The event grossed over $1,000 and was sponsored by several local businesses, including Green Star, Wegmans, and Purity. Currently in our weekly all-school meetings, we are discussing a proposal that was brought forward by a student to change the names of our projects and cycles, giving them more like conventional, I guess, for lack of a better word, or better understood names such as electives or quarters. It's prompting many discussions surrounding whether or not the names we have for the various parts of our school are what make us alternative or not. So we'll vote on that tomorrow in our ASM probably. And then last week, the Spanish language immersion trip, which is headed to Ecuador, and then again that New Orleans Hurricane Katrina relief trip. They had been selling citrus, so that came in last week, and that resulted in over $3,300 in profit between both groups. And additionally, as the fourth quarter draws nearer, family groups and other spring trips are sort of ramping up their fundraising efforts to meet their goals for the year, including bake sales, school dances, and other sort of community-wide events. Thank you.
Very good. We'll hear more from LACS in a little bit, but for now, Ithaca. Asha, go ahead.
So Green Team has organized a school strike this Friday, March 15th, where students will gather to demand action on climate change. Students are planning to meet outside of Cope Auditorium at 11:30 and march down to the Commons for the rally. And the march is a part of an international school strike to demand action on climate change, and all Ithaca area residents are encouraged to join as well. So the IHS's Molly UN Club had their last conference of the year at St. John Fisher College this past weekend. And overall, it was very successful and great educational experience. And so the Science Olympiad state competition is this weekend at Lemoyne College. And this is the second time ever the club has advanced to states, and it's the first time ever the club won first at regionals to qualify for states. And so many members of the Swiss Strong Women Impacting Society Club are in Albany today for the Planned Parenthood Day of Action to show their support for Planned Parenthood and the reproductive and health services they provide.
The annual IHS Social Justice Week will be taking place from March 25th through 29th at IHS this year, where a variety of presenters are going to discuss social justice topics ranging from the criminal justice system to the ICSD equity report. And the overarching theme of all presentations is citizenship, which is inspired by Claudia Rankine's book of poetry, prose and images, which is called Citizen and American Lyric. Students and staff at IHS have been reading this book in preparation, and all of the presentations will focus on engagement and enacting change inside and outside of school. So for sports, winter sports wrapped up in the past couple weeks. So 4 IHS basketball players, 3 girls and 1 boy, played in the Stars and Stripes All-Star game yesterday. 2 IHS varsity boys hockey players made Division I All-State team, so we want to extend our congratulations to them. So, IHS indoor track player Kalina Yearwood competed at the New Balance Indoor Nationals last week, and she placed third in the country in her division, so that was an excellent performance. The past couple weeks, the unified basketball team has been underway in their second season. And last week, the girls lacrosse team participated in their workout, and they've been holding weekly open gyms for anyone wanting to participate. They'll be joining in the Taganic Falls Polar Plunge on the 23rd of March, where all their proceeds will go to the Special Olympics. And if over $2,000 is raised, our very own Dr. Brown will be joining the plunge, so.
Are we promoting that already?
It sounds like a doctor.
So you're encouraged to chip in for that. And another fundraiser for them is that if you eat at Red's Place on the 20th of March, 10% of all their sales will be donated also to the Special Olympics under their name. So we encourage you to donate to both of those.
Where is that?
Red's Place.
Yeah, I know, what day?
On the 20th.
You they take credit cards for the?
We got the $2,000 raised.
Right. Okay, no. Board responses other than the credit card question. Chris, go ahead.
How far are we away from the $2,000?
Pretty far away,
Yeah, probably
actually.
pretty
I was
fast.
just there today. There's, it was like $155.
All right.
I'll pay $2,000 not to get in that cold water.
Is that an option?
I have one question
Oh,
with
please.
the Katrina relief. I just looked it up. So Katrina happened in 2005, and we're still doing relief work.
Yep.
Yeah, and I went down there. I was on that trip last year, and we went, and it's in like a struggling neighborhood, so it's been pretty overlooked by the government in their relief efforts, and the work that is done down there, it's not like really a ton, but it's really that showing that people care still, and that it hasn't been forgotten, I think is what is most.
Right, there's some neighborhoods that have not recovered, and certainly populations that have not come back. Right, so it's
Sam, you went last year, right? And I went to New Orleans for the first time last year. And we happened to find this little tiny museum in the 9th Ward that was about the whole history of the 9th Ward. And so I've been meaning to tell Gina that if you haven't discovered that museum, is really, really worth going to.
Oh yeah, yes, okay, definitely.
It's in the 9th Ward. It's in a house, and it shows the whole history of the 9th Ward, and particularly things that happened there during Katrina, which did not get a lot of press and were pretty appalling.
anything else? Are we good? We'll keep moving because we're a little late. So let's move on. We go to the consent. We are 7 tonight. We have 2 members that are not here tonight, so we are 7.
Consent is presented. Second.
Second by Chris. Anything of notes other than the usual? All right, so we're good? Nothing wrong with short, because we have lots of longs to do eventually. Move seconded, all in favor, are we good? All in favor, that's everyone. Sam doesn't, I was looking for Sam does not get the vote. Okay, right. All right, so we're all good. Dr. Brown.
Thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Ainsley. Just one item, an invitation to our board members to be at our professional development session that kicks off at 8:30 a.m. on Monday morning. I can't express to you how excited I am for this day of learning that will be led by our ICSD educators. And the day will be focused on key systems in our organization, which are teaching and learning innovations, culturally responsive practices, and inclusion. So over 50 workshops, thanks to Lily Takad and Mary Grover, who have done exceptional work pulling this together. But 50 workshops that are going to be conducted by our educators around these key systems, outstanding offerings. So we invite you to, we're going to kick it off at 8:30 with me sharing some remarks and some framing for the day, and then we will spend the morning together. The afternoon will be back, folks will be back in their individual departments and buildings. But the morning, if you can be with us on Monday morning, that would be great. Culp Auditorium. And then the workshops will be throughout the high school and that area there. Yeah, PD is going real well as an organization right now. We had Shiraki Holly in here today, working with close to 200 educators around across the practices. I see some folks, and a special shout out to folks from SUNY Portland who are aspiring superintendents, I like to call them over there, who are taking the district leadership course. And I heard the professor is outstanding for that course too. But they're taking the district leadership course, and they're here to observe a meeting, a district level meeting. But Beth was at the meeting today with Shiraki, and Julie works in our local BOE.
Oh, so they're in for a treat. Oh, okay.
Yeah, they were for it too. And that's the only item I have tonight, just to hope that you can make it out. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Brown. And so let's move on. And LACS updates.
All right.
Deb, come on.
How's everyone?
Hello, Jeff.
I'm
Very good.
good. Sam, I'm gonna ask you to chime in. Okay, if you choose. All right, I'm gonna highlight 3 initiatives that are happening this year at LACS that are a actual continuation of work that has existed for over 45 years. 3 buckets to speak to: student assessment and how do we measure proficiency in an alternative program that is non-graded. Then enhancing our definition of democracy in this ever-changing landscape of democracy or the lack thereof, and collaboration and consultation through professional development. So the first is the performance-based assessment task. Has anybody heard about the PBATs or what that is? Okay, for those who have not, early on in the tenure of LACS, we joined a consortium of alternative schools, and that consortium now no longer exists in a formalized way. But most of the consortium schools are in New York City proper. We are one of 2 that are outside of New York City, which poses a unique dilemma with consultation and norming around grading based on standards-based assessments. LACS was in the forefront of creating an alternative assessment paradigm. You have a handout that if you should choose to, you can look at just a little bit more about what the PBATs are. And I included some samples of rubrics that are used for the PBATs process. So in general, students engage in performance-based assessment tasks that are authentic and of their choice. It aligns with our non-graded narrative assessments, and students getting credit equivalent based on portfolio assessments. So it's very rigorous and is something that students engage in starting in 11th grade, going all the way through till promotion. They don't, in a 4-year period, have to complete 4 project-based assessment tasks. How they engage in those tasks is working authentically with their core teachers in the 4 core subject areas, determining their topic of interest, exploring and researching that topic of interest, preparing a presentation that shows the depth of their knowledge. Prior to the presentation, they must submit a paper. That paper is then assessed and graded by 2 content specialists at the school. They are then cleared for engaging in this performance-based assessment task. Outside raters from throughout the community, ICSD, BOCES, SUNY Portland, Ithaca College, and Cornell have been asked to come in and be raters. Students then present their exploration and performance-based task, and then have to open themselves up to authentic questions from those raters. Those questions are intended to assess the student's depth of knowledge and connections that they make outside of that specific performance-based task. If they pass that PBATs based on those 3 steps to the process, then they are ready in lieu of a Regents exam to promote from high school. Sam just recently has completed, right? You have,
I did.
you completed.
I did all 4 last year.
Yep.
Yeah.
Anything you wanna add to the process, or something anecdotally you wanna share about what you learned through that process?
Well, I think I actually had a lot of fun doing them. I really like doing presentations. So it was really cool for me to have the opportunity to research. I mean, and I don't I'm not very STEMmy, like science is not my thing, and neither is math. But for my science PBAT, I got to explore the HeLa cell that I knew nothing about, and I gotta try to remember exactly what I did with it, but it was something like I did an experiment and I scraped the cell and saw how it regenerated. That's what it was in different temperatures, and I had no idea what to expect from it. But I saw the results that I got back, and then it was presenting it at Cornell, and that's pretty interesting to people who I didn't know. But it was really cool. I analyzed 1984 for my English PBAT, and overall, I found them pretty interesting. They were tricky. I was surprised they were tricky, but really interesting.
How did you decide what your topic was? Did you work with one of the teachers to kind of craft it?
Well, so last year was was the first year that we did PBATs. So my grade it was not built into the curriculum of any classes at all, and so I was picking I read 1984 and I want to compare it to a short story by Ray Bradbury, I think was the author. And so I compared those, but no, I think there was a class that I could take that offered some support with a teacher to help you craft it. That way I had at least, a staff member could offer me some support there. But then they started being more built in as the year went on. We started building them into classes.
Thanks.
Yeah,
The PBAT process naturally marries with the concept of student agency and student choice and student voice. What we're working to do right now is blend the PBAT's process and align it more with our portfolio assessment and our narrative assessments so that it's an ongoing and more authentic process that is not a standalone, like sitting for the Regents exam. How can we marry all three of those things? The next topic to cover is democracy. What does democracy mean in relation to our alternativeness? And our stated mission at LECS is to educate students to be global citizens by engaging in 21st century learning experiences. And there's no doubt that a key component of our programming is to provide authentic opportunities for students to learn about and engage in the democratic process. And there is no doubt right now that democracy within a global context is a complex notion. So not only is it relevant in time and space for us as a community to grapple with the definition of democracy, but also what unique skills should students possess and be able to know and be able to do within the democratic process, given the current context that we're experiencing in the US specifically, but also in the world. So our first dip into that was, there are a few processes that we call linked to Essential One, that are those authentic experiences within our school community where kids can actually in real time play with democracy and learn about democracy. And so there is a morning meeting, there are all school meetings that take place every week that are student driven and student led. We actually use the voting process every week with proposals that can be brought forth to the whole community by anyone. Student voice is equivalent to and equal to staff voice. And just how authentically are we playing out that process, and how are we dialoguing around that process and analyzing the process. Morning meeting was something that was struggling over the last few years, and this seems to be an ebb and flow historically about every 5 or 6 years. The institution itself revisits morning meeting, its purpose and its intent. So I took a leadership move and decided to cancel morning meeting to kind of push the envelope with the community revisiting and re-imaging what our voting process is and what democracy means. So the students took full charge of the process along with their staff guide. And I've included 3 links in another document if you're interested. I'm happy to share those links with you so you can dig a little deeper into what that process looked like. But we have now, in true LACS form, resurrected morning meeting, but it's now taking place in the afternoon, but we decided to keep, so it's morning meeting in the afternoon, and instead of twice a week, it's once a week, and we have a very specific protocol for what the definition of that is. And that's just a window into the world of student voice and student agency. The last that I briefly want to touch on is systems change through staff consensus and collaboration. As a result of the principal search that took place over the last year, there was a deep analysis of all of the different ways in which LACS lives and breathes its work. And there was what's called a gallery walk protocol that the staff engaged in at the end of last year to identify those systems that they felt were rich, authentic, and that they held sacred to how the school operates. And they did a protocol of identifying strengths within that system, identifying areas needed for change, and who might do that change work. And then that work kind of sat. So this summer, a small group of us decided what were we gonna do to keep this work alive. And we changed staff professional development that takes place every Wednesday, and the first 45 minutes is designated to staff breaking out into groups, academic focused groups or initiative focused groups. So it's staff coming together for a 6-week protocol, use some visioning and some recommendations around what the work needs to be and what it should look like, and then comes back to the all staff. That will result in some work groups this summer and some time that staff will come together as a whole. If you want actual titles of what these 6-week breakout groups have been through the cycle, I'm also happy to share that. Any questions, comments,
I'm sure.
reactions?
Brad, go ahead.
Hi, Brad.
Over the last few years, it's been concerning LACS at the middle school level lagging in math, pretty significantly behind. And where are we headed with that?
Okay, can you tell me a little bit more, Brad, about the metrics that you're
The
using to determine?
the state exam.
The state exam, okay, all right. So we have a 4-person math team right now. One person is tenured and has been at LACS for over 10 years. We have another staff member that has joined 4 years, 1 new staff member, and then a part-time staff member. This is not new news to anyone at
No, I know.
LACS or in the district.
I understand.
And I strongly believe, and so does the math team, believe that this is a multi-pronged approach. First is defining our alternativeness, and our alternativeness as it relates to those more traditional course offerings like math and science. What is the current research on the pedagogy around teaching math and teaching kids to be innovators, critical thinkers, and students that don't just know orders of operation? Now, I think that anyone in this district can agree that the job of a middle school math department is challenging when you're within a district that has a very eclectic scope and sequence for what curriculum you're using K through 5. What are your essential and enduring understandings linked to the Common Core State Standards K through 5? And when you are a school that's an open lottery school that gets students from all of these feeder pattern schools, with students who have been taught in different classrooms with different curriculum, it has posed a unique challenge for my math department. So we have a semester-long class called Inquiry and Tools, which teaches those soft skills. All also teaches those skills that relate to persevering with difficult tasks, savoring a struggle, working collaboratively or with manipulatives around solving problems related to math thinking. And we've had to spend quite a bit of time teaching kids those soft skills. So it's a complex issue. We also have the math department engaging in a book study around the MTT and standards for alternative math thinking. We're sending the math team to other alternative schools in the fourth quarter to sit in on math classes at other schools that show metrics success, to see what it looks like and what it feels like in a classroom that has rigorous math instruction. They're gonna use either the University of Washington rounds protocol or the Harvard University instructional rounds protocol to gather evidence and then come back and deconstruct it. I also set aside funding for them to meet as a professional learning community this summer, and they're gonna be doing scope and sequence course mapping. The other issue, I think, at LACS has been a lack of clarity with students and teachers about what a course trajectory might look like if you're wanting to go into a math science, like what are the courses you should be taking and when should you take them? So we're doing a lot of work.
The other question would be, I know it's another metric, but
Yeah.
graduation rate.
Yep, Yep.
Again, it's lagging
yep.
the high school by quite a bit.
Yeah, high school graduation rate has been in the last 6 years between 92% and 95%, and kind of varies at the high school. LACS has hovered around 83 to 84%. I encourage you, and to those students in the room, I encourage you to look at metrics and realize that percentages and, when you have 6 kids and only 44 in your graduating class, you can't just look at that percentage, right? It's apples and oranges. But the other issue that I want to point out is I pulled 2016-17 and 2017-18 metrics. Last year, we had 18 students not promote. One of them chose to get a GED. 2 other students promoted in August just by simply taking a class in summer school. One student had spent half the year in a drug treatment program, and we welcomed that student back to finish, and 2 other students had significant hospitalizations. So I think there's also the individual people and students with unique needs behind the metrics. The year before that, we had one student miss a whole year because of Lyme's disease. We had another student go with her family to Peru for half the year. We had another student that was an English language learner that didn't promote because she was not able to pass the Regents exam. So if you take these unique students out of your metrics, we're up to about 91%. So I'm not as concerned as I would be had I just looked at the percentage for graduation rate. I also think there's another story to tell. There are a number of students that are at LACS that if they had to go to a more traditional school setting, may not be promoting, may be dropping out, may be really struggling. The unique opportunity that LACS gives for kids to explore learning in a unique way, I think that's also kind of the soft data that's hard to capture at times.
Other questions?
I just want to make a comment. I'm very excited and encouraged by the PBAC process. And I hope sometime to be able to participate. But the
Yeah.
last couple times when it's been an opportunity, I haven't been available. And one of the things that when I look at this, for many years I was involved in a program at a high school, the WISE program.
Yeah.
And there was a presentation and there was Q&A and then feedback from evaluators, and I always found that to be a really tremendous process. And I would love if it were possible every graduating student, every
Yeah.
senior to have that experience of making a presentation and, you know, having a dialogue and then feedback from
Yeah.
a panel of evaluators. I think that I saw so many times a lot of growth and a lot of kind of just light bulbs going on for students when they heard that feedback and the just the inspiration of having to make that presentation. So I'm just thrilled that all the students at LACS are going to be doing this
Yeah.
and are doing it.
Yeah. And if anyone's interested in being a PBAT rater, just reach out, let me know, and at the beginning of next year, we can get you scheduled for being a rater or listening to a presentation. And even if you don't wanna be a rater, you can come and sit and watch a presentation.
If I had to do a presentation, I never would have graduated from Ithaca High School, so, times change.
And look at you
It
now.
would have been a
Look
very,
at you
it would have been a
now.
very, very good thing if somebody actually made me talk at Ithaca High School
Yeah.
a long time ago. They didn't feel it was necessary. But, Chris, others, Dan?
I actually had the opportunity to sit in a few of the PBATs. It's very impressive. It was actually, I was there, Chris,
Scary.
Chris Berry and I, yeah, and, no, it was really good, and it really shows the different ability to talk about the learnings and their understanding, and you can't fake it.
Yeah.
You know, you can try to
Yeah, I
stumble
know, that's,
through
yeah.
and like BS your way through it, and it's gonna
Right.
show pretty quickly, 3 minutes in, it's gonna show whether or not you did the work, you know the content or not.
Yep.
So.
Ann, go ahead.
Yeah, I just have one
Oh.
thought on the systems. I thought, I was just interested in the fact that you're kind of looking at things kind of systemic, you know, and so one of my questions, what are the main systems are you looking at?
We're going all the way back to mission and vision and what grounds us. So we're doing some work, starting on the 18th in the afternoon. Well, what is our collective definition of alternative and what does that mean? And looking above and beyond, we have tended in the last 10 years, I believe, from what I hear from elders, to focus on systems that we have in place. And now it's time to dig deeper and look at the integrity that's within those systems. And it's been a while since the actual instructional practices in the classroom have been looked at from the paradigm of alternative, which kind of gets to
Okay.
Brad's question about math instruction and how do you link our alternative, project-based, authentic portfolio experiences with academic rigor.
Right.
So that's one place that we're looking at. We also are, we've, I think, gotten the farthest in our work around student engagement and the response to intervention protocols, and being more thoughtful about how do we capture and create meaningful plans for student success for students that may be struggling. So that's where we've gotten the farthest with our new systems work. We're looking also at onboarding new staff. What is the system around that, and what does that mean, and how are we supporting new staff and instructionally? Those are just a few examples. Hi, Nicole.
You kind of answered a couple of my questions, but I was gonna ask, how do you define alternative when it comes to education? Because I think people have different definitions of what alternative means when it comes to education.
Yep.
And then two, thinking about systems and change and being in an establishment that, I would say doesn't like change. They have a mold and they seem to know who they are. How do you attack that as someone who's new, who's comfortably, gently pushing them to be uncomfortable? How do you approach that?
Sam, you wanna respond to that?
About the fact that we sort of have our mold and alternative, and what was the other part of that?
How is she attacking, or how is she addressing systems and change in terms of LACS being really stuck in its mold in terms of who they are and who they want to be?
Well, I think that you're very right. I think that it's been a transition this year. I'm not gonna lie.
Be honest. Be honest.
Some people, like for me, it's fine for me. I personally am really glad that we have sort of a fresh face, and it's a bummer I'm graduating, but we're looking at the ways, you know, to improve some of the trends I was noticing, because I've been there 7 years. And so I think what is most interesting to see is people are feeling, because there's this fresh new face, and it's a little shocking to everybody, you know, suddenly, oh, we have someone who's, you know, helping us shape ourselves, and we sort of were used to just going with the flow. And so it's very I think it's of everything. It's having a fresh face, a fresh mind, especially someone, you know, from out of the community who's coming in, and outside of our school community. So I just think being able to look at things from a fresh angle.
The only thing, thank you, Sam, the only thing to add to that is from a leadership perspective, I feel very blessed that I'm where I'm at in my career, and that I have had multiple opportunities in different districts that have struggled with different issues. So I'm coming with experience and tools, having humbly been on the journey of being in a district that was really struggling with an alternative school early on in my career as a school social worker, and was a school within a schools model using expeditionary learning in the early 80s, and what did that mean? And then moving to an urban district as a social worker, and then getting my degree as an administrator in Baltimore, Maryland, and also being in an alternative school, but then going to a more traditional school, and then moving back to the Midwest and leveraging that knowledge and experience that I had. And then just before I came here, I was at a turnaround school that was a charter school run by Johns Hopkins University in Baltimore, Maryland, and have learned that coming into a school that is looking for change or feeling change, a need for change, there you also have to be very cognizant of and very sensitive to celebrating the richness, acknowledging the history, and listening with an open heart and listening with an open mind, and not moving in a change direction until you hear very clearly that the students and staff are ready for change. So there have only been a few things that have really changed, other than I stand at the door every morning and say good morning. And starting there and moving slow, but making sure that people realize the richness and beauty that already exists within the institution. And there's a lot. It's a beautiful place to be. I feel very lucky.
Beth, anything? No need.
I'm gonna leave that as it is. That was lovely.
And anyone else? I will only follow up because I feel I should. Just so you're new to the district, as was Dr. Brown at one time, and I do have to say that one of Dr. Brown's first public meetings with the PTA council, basically, the graduation rate at the guy was brought up,
Yeah.
and at 78%. And for me, I was in the back. It was unacceptable to me that 20% of the kids at High were not graduating, and their needs are not being met. So the expectations, so it had to be said early on that our expectations were higher, and so for the district, and so LACS is in the district, and so we want LACS to do what you do it greatly, do what you do, but we're still, perhaps you can tell me, should our expectations be any different for LACS and for Ithaca High School and other schools in our district? Yeah, the expectations that we're gonna meet the needs of every single kid in our school.
Yeah.
And that's the only way you get to be
Absolutely.
successful.
And
However you
yeah.
wanna do it, right?
Yep, and I would encourage us as partners to look at the narrative of all of the students at LACS, and look at the students that are learning in an atypical way, that where their brilliance would not have been captured had they not been in the setting that is LACS. I think it's incredibly admirable that this board and this district has embraced alternative democratic education as long as you have and sustained it. And I think if you were to go to the website and look at, because it's one of the things I did in considering coming here and even taking this position, looking at the narratives of the graduates of LACS, where they are now, and who they were when they were in high school. I don't know whose project it was, but it's like a blog. I really encourage you, if you have a moment, to spend some time. And every time we talk about the charge I've been given to help my school community increase our graduation rates, I also want us to look at those narratives and those stories of students that may not have met with success or go to college and career with success, but they not have the opportunity.
Right, as you say, that percentage rate is just a number. It's,
Yep. Yeah.
You have to look beyond the numbers.
Yep.
So we appreciate that.
Yeah.
And I'm not, it's nice to be called a fresh new face every once in a while.
Yeah.
I mean, it's-
Exactly,
no, it's like, wow.
58 and I'm a
It's like,
fresh
wow.
new face,
It's like,
love
wow.
it.
It's great.
Love it,
It's great.
love it.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Anything else?
thank you, everybody.
Deb, thank you.
Thank
Thank you very
you.
much. And speaking of fresh new faces, Amanda,
No,
are we doing budget presentation?
Oh, yeah, we do Lisa Lee.
Oh,
Lisa Lee.
oh, absolutely.
Lisa's also fresh.
Thanks, Rob.
Legislative grant.
Where was this?
It's all at the bottom.
She's right at mine at the bottom.
Oh,
Yep.
thanks. So it wasn't just me this time, so I was,
I'm sorry.
okay.
Those are here, just all the way at the bottom.
Oh, they're the very bottom.
There we go.
Oh, we're good. Hi, Lisa, it's not, you are right here, so.
Yes, yes. So, thank you for having me. I was invited to talk to you a little bit about a grant that we were awarded called the Legislative Grant Award. It was proposed to us last spring. I think it was a conversation between Amanda Verba and Barbara Lifton. The purpose of the grant was, it was already set, it was targeted, it was focused on after-school programming, supporting after-school programming at Boynton Middle School and DeWitt. So we applied for the grant this fall and received the grant. It's $25,000, it's sort of like a one-time award. So in talking with Mac Knight and Jeff about how they saw us using that award, the best way to use it. We were pretty intentional, but of course, obviously we want to increase student participation in clubs. Participation in co-curricular activities is one of the key metrics that we look at on our equity report card. And I learned that it's not something that we've actually had some good baseline data on and been able to gather well. We focus more on the traditional arts and athletics. So this was sort of an opportunity if we provided some equipment and supplies to also encourage club leaders to sort of help us get that participation so we could actually take a better look at what's happening. And also, of course, whenever you get data, you want to use it. So in looking at it, I had lots of questions that came to my mind automatically, like who's actually participating in clubs, what subgroups are participating, are we missing, are we ignoring, are we even offering things that students want? So this was sort of our, a way to launch that data gathering and that conversation. So just to give you a little bit of a rundown of some of the things, fitness equipment was really big on the list in both schools. Yeah.
To clarify before you further, when you say fitness equipment, is that like what they are using or what they wish they had?
What they wish they had.
Okay.
Yeah, so both schools purchased things. I think they both have an after-school fitness club, but I also think that there's a desire among kids to explore fitness. who aren't participating maybe in traditional athletics, or maybe who want to do that.
But did you, so this is stuff that you've already enacted then, or this is something you're going to?
This is sort of a summary of some of the things that were purchased
Oh,
with
okay.
the $25,000. So I reached out to the middle school principals and said, hey, can you please talk to your club leaders and your students? Like, what are your wishes here? And we kind of decided to focus on equipment instead of like stipends for leaders, because we're not sure that would be sustainable, right? So we kind of focused on the material. So these are just some of the materials that were ordered in between both schools. Ping pong tables or tennis tables, that's an up and coming club at DeWitt Middle School. And I know that Boynton really wants to participate as well. So there were some tennis tables, instruments, small, different size guitars, ukuleles, faction size basses. They wanted some different size instruments for kids who were smaller in stature to be able to participate. Gaga ball pit, and then of course just some supplies for yearbook, science, art, and some of the other clubs.
Am I the only one on the board who doesn't know what a Gaga ball pit is?
I was waiting for you to ask.
I'm so glad you asked, because Jeff Tomasic was like, Lisa, he's like, what's this thing that sixth graders come to middle school and go with this Gaga thing,
You gotta
right?
get Dan Brown to come and
So,
describe it to you.
a Gaga ball pit is a game, and it's on a lot of elementary school playgrounds. So like kids get in a walled pit and they hit
like,
ball back
like
and
the ball
forth.
pit. Oh, so it's not like the ball pit at Chuck E. Cheese.
No.
It's kind of like that Thunderdome thing, right? Where,
It's turn the benches over is the way
yeah.
Two kids enter, one kid leaves.
Two kids enter, one kid leaves, yeah, that's, yeah.
you make the pit out of turned over benches.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
You gotta watch the
Is it-
video. There's a lot of athleticism and strategy involved.
It's very big at the fall retreat at LACS. Gaga ball pit is very popular.
So,
How hard is the ball? I mean, what is, go ahead, sorry, Lisa, go ahead.
it's,
Yes.
you can ask. Boynton, that Gaga ball pit is gonna go to Boynton. They purchased one, so, yeah. So, I worked with Lynn, and just to let you know, even though the equipment was ordered in November, we just got some of it like a week or two ago. Like the Olympic-sized ping pong tables were awesome, but like they came from California and were like on back order for a long time, and some of the fitness equipment. But anyway, we worked with schools. We got some of the preliminary participation. I just kind of wanted to put the general participation rate out for you. This is what we have in terms of students participating in clubs. Again, this doesn't include arts and athletics.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
This
Right.
Just
is
club.
prior, this is before you got this new equipment?
So this
your
is as
baseline?
of March.
Okay.
I'm not gonna say you're gonna see the effects right
Mhm.
now of having some of the equipment, because it was just put to,
Yeah.
just delivered. Right. So, but we are looking for a baseline, so it's kind of a way to get it. So I had the opportunity to kind of go out and kind of like explore club action at the middle school level, which was really fun. I have to say that when I was in both schools, either before school or after school, it's a really nice feel. There's something about co-curricular activities and seeing kids in co-curricular activities that I think we can learn from. So, the young man on the left up there, he was in guitar club. He had just gotten his guitar in January, and he was wanting to show me all of the basic chords that he had mastered since October. And then that was at DeWitt. And then the young man on the right was extremely motivated. It was the first day of fitness club. And he said that quote to me, "Will you take my picture? I am here to motivate you." And I had actually overheard him talking with a peer, and he said to his friend, he said, "You brought me down here today to motivate you, so let's get going." And just a couple more. These are. Hang on. Let's see. Not sure why I can't get that one to play. This is I can do the afternoon step squad. If you know a step coach, the step squad is looking for one, but there's more kids than these two, but actually this young lady on the left is using YouTube, and she is teaching 6 other kids step. And these ladies really wanted to get it right. Let's see if I can get them. No. It's not gonna play. Oh, shucks. Sorry. So the top video was a couple of boys who were sitting on yoga balls and throwing like a 30-pound ball, core strength, right in the morning. So the idea was, try not to fall off. Fall. But they're both. Okay. All right. And then this is the last one I have. This is the ping pong club that's at DeWitt. I don't know if any of you know about the ping pong club. If you look at the sheet, it's like the most popular club. It's run by Kara Hoffman, who's an E&L teacher there. They also, just this past Saturday, they have ping pong club Saturdays where they invite kids and families to come and play ping pong. It is a great way for kids to meet other kids. So like they have some sort of number system where they select a partner, and then every 10 minutes they rotate, they get a new partner, they interact, and it's also been a nice way for families to meet each other. So real nice feel there as well. I do have the data sheet if you want to take a deeper dive. That's for you. That's what you got.
Yep.
Any questions about the grant?
Well, not so much about the grant, but it's DeWitt, Boynton, and IHS. What about LACS?
Right. So that question was asked. I asked Amanda that question, and I think that I think it was maybe discussed prior. I know Amanda's here. Why not LACS? Do you remember?
I don't remember.
I was not
why.
part of that conversation.
No, I know that they had some robust activities after school that they needed to sort of like bring some vibe, a little bit more, revamp them and bring a little bit more equipment to. I don't remember intentionally leaving LACS off in any way. I think that was just sort of thinking about those 2 schools in terms of building more of a community setting. And if it was probably the idea that LACS has such a community setting already, that to build it in those sort of larger middle schools was probably where the focus was. It wasn't intentional though, in any way.
I just know last year, in the context of just talking about the data around co-curricular participation and how important it is, I had conversations with a couple of people, staff people at LACS about, well, what's the story at LACS? I mean, do you know what kids are doing after school? Do you know what kids might want to be doing after school if opportunity was provided? I'm curious, in this larger context, like, how many LACS kids are participating in athletics, which they do have an opportunity to do. But I just think that those questions need to be asked about LCS too.
Yeah, we've looked at that data, and we can parse out again and share with the board and others, but we've looked at the data in the past, and the last time we looked at it, it was consistent with the other schools. That percentage that you saw earlier from the other three schools was similar to ACS. And we do have ACS students who are participating in the athletic programs and the fine and performing arts programs as well. And my understanding about this grant too was it was intended to be a pilot project. And with all pilots, it's not going to be district-wide. And so Boynton and DeWitt were considered as part of the pilot with hopes that we or Barbara Lipton will come back to the table again to support us with additional funds. And Lisa, you may want to speak about your role. I mean, part of your role this year, your new role this year, is to identify, get, and support innovative pilot project grants like this too.
Right. So Dr. Brown did ask me to share with you some of the other parts of my role as Director of Special Projects. So some of the other things that I do oversee, or the grants that I do oversee, I do oversee the title grants. So, the real quick down and dirty of title, Title I, funds to target kids in poverty. Title II, funds provide quality professional development for teachers. Title III, funds target E&L. And Title IV was something new this year, so that was sort of a new kind of title that was offered. There are a lot of different categories that schools could choose from. It's around providing quality education for all students. In Ithaca, we chose to use that money to focus on STEM and also culturally responsive teaching, just to give you a rundown. So that's one of the ones that I kind of take a look at and oversee. The other grant that has been around, this is year 3, I'd love to come back sometime and talk to you more about this one, is the Farm to Table grant. So that is in 4 of our elementary schools, higher need elementary schools, again, targeting students in need. And I'm also overseeing summer school programming. So Farm to Table and Project Innovation, that's really exciting work, because our whole idea of summer school is really changing and messaging to people that summer school is for all students, giving students opportunities to experience project-based learning and case study work versus that old academic intervention model during summer school is really exciting to be a part of. And I've reached out to a lot of the educators who were involved in Project Innovation last year, and I would say 90% of them want to return, which is great. They love the experience of working in that setting. So that's the other thing. I also oversee E&L, and one of the most exciting things that maybe you've heard a little bit about is the New York State Seal of Diversity. So kind of worked with the E&L department, the English department, world language teachers at the high school, so to provide students with an opportunity to have that distinction at graduation, honoring students who can demonstrate fluency in more than one language. So this targets E&L speakers, but it also targets English speakers who can demonstrate fluency in other languages as well. So working with that team to kind of come up with the guidebook, the process, the presentation, which is part of it. I believe it's April 10th. Right here, students are gonna have to present in their other language. Has been a really exciting initiative. And finally, just one more thing that I've been working on that's actually been really rewarding work is before Carrie Burke came on as the coordinator of health and wellness, they needed somebody to sort of streamline and tighten the process for our students who need alternative education plans. So this is talking about kids usually with mental health or medical reasons that they're not attending school. So I've done a lot of work, talked with our social workers, talked with our CSE chairs about how to ensure that these kids stay as connected as possible to their schools, even though they may be going through a challenging time just that, that whole idea, that mindset shift again of putting a kid on alternate instruction, sort of sending them away from us to sort of get better, and we'll see you, let us know when you're feeling better, to now, look, we wanna help you, we wanna support you. You might have to work at home with a tutor, but we're gonna check back in with you in 3 weeks and see if maybe you're ready to move your tutor to school, or, just working with teams of folks in schools to sort of address this issue in a way that's a little bit tighter, that kids feel like they have a support system here to work with them. I think that's it.
A lot of stuff.
You're a quick question.
You're
Go ahead.
learning, yes.
In terms of looking at the numbers,
Sure.
did you and Lynn, or did you take time to think about ways in which there could be gaps, say, for example, with special ed and general education, and the differences between engagement with like free lunch and not free lunch? If that could be an access issue?
Yeah, yes. I mean, I looked at this and also had some questions, or, is there anything, for example, with students with disabilities, is there anything we could be doing differently in terms of club offerings? Or are they feeling like they have access? I think perhaps the next step should be using this data to send a survey of sorts to our students, and kind of finding out, what it is they're actually interested in and willing to participate. I know that some of these clubs are in fact student initiated, and some to me have more of a traditional ring. So I think I would like the student voice piece to kind of help us answer some of those questions, that the numbers bring.
Towards the question of access, I know that one of the kind of persistent issues sometimes is like transportation, especially if it's like before school. And if you're out there looking for funds and grants, what kind of strategies, or have you thought about the, participation and its relationship to kind of, where, how
Yeah.
transportation or lack thereof
Yeah, well, I mean,
impacts.
I actually heard that,
Yeah.
like if you arrive on a later bus,
Mhm.
like participating in that early morning club time,
Yeah.
that you might not be able to do that. I do know that transportation is provided after school at both schools, during the week.
But it continues to be a barrier, and it has been.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why we work so closely with Carrie Curran and Transportation Coalition, which is featured in the most recent Inside Evaluate Club. But yeah, we do a lot. We're having more and more conversation, and it's gotten better, but it continues to still be a barrier. The transportation issue alone, and then our offerings. That's what spawned the Unified Sports Program last year.
Yeah.
So we got to be better about what we offer, and we got to figure out this economic issue around transportation.
Yeah, and one thing I think too, it's like in an elementary school setting, families kind of sometimes feel more comfortable coming in, you can hang out on the playground, and I think when kids get up to middle school, there's like this division that families don't always know how to enter into the school, it's like the kids don't necessarily want their, there's like all kinds of things that kind of impact that. So I wonder too, as you're kind of shaping and looking at the kinds of activities, where the family can engage and interact with those activities. Where is it appropriate? It may not be in every spot.
Right.
But are there some where family can kind of be part of the process?
Sure. It's a good thought.
Well, there are students in the room. I don't want to call on anyone, but how do you decide if you want to join an after-school activity? Do you feel like the activities that are offered after school speak to you? Do you feel like some things are exclusive?
I don't know. I take part in 2 different clubs, and I know they were just clubs I was interested in. I also had friends who were part of them. So I think in a way some clubs are definitely a little bit cliquey in that you definitely wouldn't join them if you don't already know people who are in them.
I experienced something similar when I've tried out probably over half a dozen clubs by this point. The only one I went to more than 2 meetings in was Art Club, and that basically collapsed I've tried to go to it this year, but the few times I've gone, there hasn't been anybody in the room. So it's just sort of like, some clubs are probably more cliquey than others, but I've never precisely received a warm welcome from any one club.
I'm getting nods, around, yeah.
Yeah, I think that student feedback piece is going to be really important in shaping, offerings.
Right, beyond this room, right, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Thanks, Lisa.
Yeah.
Great, appreciate it.
Yeah.
And now, no further ado.
We'll bring it up in the video. I told her. We'll get her a look
We're doing iTunes, I didn't know we were
No,
doing
no,
that.
no, I was gonna say, just to mix it up, I'll leave that to my daughter.
Exactly.
So,
Here we go. So, although when I showed the slide deck to Dr. Brown, there are many slides, they will go quickly. Because we are still preliminarily in the budget planning process, and so what I like to do around this time of year is really try to break down the budget in a way that sort of makes sense in terms of the categories, another way to look at it that often aligns with our audit report. So really what I'll be doing is preliminary projections in terms of expenditures right now, take a little look at revenue that really hasn't changed very much, and then also, given the time of year that we're in and everything that's going on, especially that we're in negotiations with a lot of folks, we do want to also do a little bit of education as sort of where the money goes in terms of the salaries around the district. So that'll be the sort of last slide that we'll end on. Again, these represent expenditures to date. So we, every area of the budget is scrutinized by the developers themselves. We meet with Tricia from, the Board of Education clerk, to the directors and principals, and we really try to look at ways that we can always be either saving money or keeping costs sort of carried forward from year to the next, but there are rising costs always. The Board of Ed, just as a reminder, they are not paid positions. I don't know if you didn't realize you weren't all getting some sort of stipend or paycheck for your time here, but public, that is the truth. So this line, although it shows up in our budget, is really to pay for the staff person, the Board of Education clerk, who runs elections, and all of the costs for elections that are included as well. So that typically will be a question that comes up during the budget hearing.
There are other costs in there as well.
Yes, yes.
Just our board clerk does.
Board clerk, right, so this
Does
is the
not
board
make-
clerk, all of the costs of elections, the printing, the contracted services. There's a budget for supplies. I mean, this is not all salary. This is, if you were to look at the many line items that make this up. The next time we come together, or at least by the next time we come together, we'll be meeting in finance and facilities. I will have the line item document that will be in the budget mailer that will break that down, Rob. So that's a very good point. This is more of a macro view.
Just pointing it out.
Excellent, excellent. Administration, again, this is not just one person, these are offices, entire offices. So this is the entire office of the superintendent, the entire business office that has 5 people in it, the HR team, which has probably, I think, 6 people in it, all of the contracts that we have, all of our legal services. This comprises many, many things in addition to the salary of the people that work in those offices. As you can see again too, these costs, we actually negotiate our contracts. We don't typically put those in the budget because they're not negotiated yet. So this will be reflective of sort of any increases, mainly to contracted services that we would utilize from year to year. Data processing unit is specifically the technology that we contract with BOCES is for, so it's not just the CineRIC, which is out of OCM BOCES, but there are many other BOCES that we also have contracts with. And so
This, technology costs go up. This is all of our leases as well. So all of our copiers, all of our telephones, this would fall into this category.
Chromebooks under there?
What was that?
Chromebooks?
Yes, so all the
All the
leases are in
leases.
there. The
Okay.
Chromebook leases, the one-to-one rollout, that's all included in that cost.
And beyond
Yeah.
Chromebooks, I mean, we lease other
And-
stuff.
Correct, and the exceptional staff, one of which is in the room from the city work for us, who helps us with our meetings, so shout out to Matt. And then, I went the wrong way, sorry about that.
You did that twice.
No, it's okay. Okay, instruction, there's a lot here, and I'm just gonna stand for just a moment. So this is our biggest area of the budget. It comprises hundreds of line items, and as you can see here, it really is everything that has to do with curriculum instruction. Okay, so all these line items, when you look at our audit report and you look at this line as it tracks over time, this is really about all the instructional and professional staff. You've got some exec team members in these lines, you have principals and directors in this line, you have all of the folks that are members of ESPI, the Educational Support Professionals Unit. You've got all of your librarians, guidance, your nurses, because they support obviously the health and wellness of the students. You've got all of the mental health team in terms of psychologists and social workers. Extracurriculars, as we just talked, unless they are funded by grants, right? So that wouldn't show up here. This is what we would go to the voters for. You've got your athletic programs, summer schools, and our BOCES instructional programs, as well as all of our PD. So this obviously, as you can see, compared to the couple of items that we just looked at, this is the largest part of the budget, and obviously this 5% increase is comprised of actually surprisingly very few items. In this, if you look down at the bottom, we're in negotiations right now. We have to budget for what we think or what we assume might be some of our settlements for those bargain agreements. So we need to budget for that, or else if we don't, we won't have the money to pay for where we land. So we get sort of what we think it's going to take to sort of pay for those settled contracts. We also have substitutes costs goes up every single year. So that's an increase of about $250,000. And then the BOCE special education budget also goes up every year. The costs go up, we have more students utilizing the program, the services are expensive. That alone went up about $650,000, which you'll see also in the budget document. This is an odd one, and I have to put it out there because it is separated in the audit report and people will ask what it's comprised of. It's actually, by law, these budget codes come together, and that's how we categorize them. This is a pool supervisor. And so although it looks like it's a 22% increase, we are utilizing the pool more, and we have more staff for lifeguards, right? So we have that as an increase to the budget.
Since we fixed it, I guess, right?
And, well, not yet. We haven't fixed, well, we've done a lot of work through the EPC, but we're gonna continue to do more for the capital projects. So, yes, that cost may go up.
The earlier fixing that we have,
You can see it.
is there always something needing fixing? up
There's
there?
always something,
Could fill it in.
not just the pool. There's
But
always
Brad does
something
wanna,
needing
Brad does
fixing.
wanna fill it in, but we're not gonna do it.
Yeah, it's a thankless, it's really thankless, the
All
pool.
right.
So, except for our teams, our swim teams make it like we're just joyful about that. And a former swimmer myself, I'm all rah-rah about the pool. Transportation, as you can see, we went up about 4%, but that really equates to $200,000. For all of the routes that we run, all of the after-school offerings, buses, the sports team support that we offer, trips, to and from field trips. I mean, this is a very reasonable cost. We have tremendous staff in the transportation department that monitor this budget all the time. And quite frankly, a lot of the driver behind this is the fuel system management. We needed to upgrade the software, and that's actually one of the major drivers, as well as the settled agreements in terms of the bargain contracts and increasing salary for those folks. So that's sort of where that's coming from. And then operations and maintenance. So if you think about all of the square footage that we manage, all of the acreage of the campuses that we have, this comprises all of our operations and maintenance budgets for facilities, custodial, grounds, and utilities. This includes our NYSEG bills, our water bills, everything, the rentals of the water. I mean, this is all there. So again, for a district our size to really sort of be looking at this, and that increase again is really because of the staffing settled agreements that we have, and prices go up with gas, water, electric. we anticipate that.
But 1 million square feet plus all the grounds.
Oh my goodness,
around,
the
right?
acreage, sure, and then many non-instructional buildings as well, right? So, you know, we have the school buildings, but we also have a lot of other buildings as well. So, there's that. The benefits line, second to the instructional line and the salary lines are all of our benefits. So, as many of you know, if you work in school districts, you get paid employee retirement or teacher retirement, depending on the system that you're in. Once you are here a certain number of years, the district picks up that entire cost. So that is on the taxpayers to fund the public employees that work here. We have Social Security as well that is paid by the district for salaries, workers' compensation. We're part of a consortium for that. That actually went up about 8% this year, but it's about I think it's about 900,000 of this total budget. We have unemployment insurance for folks that go out, and then also our health insurance and our dental insurance. Right now with health insurance, this year was a higher claims year than last year. We sort of expected that. And we are also transitioning folks to a fully insured program in terms of retirees, but we're probably going to be having somewhere between a 6 and 7% increase with health insurance, which is about the standard in the area. I think the co-op is pacing a little bit higher than that, but we're right at about that 7% increase. TRS and ERS is a fringe that hangs off of salary. So as salaries go up, you take a percentage of that salary. So even if the rates for TRS and ERS go down, if salaries go up, those in the line items still often go up, okay?
So for the first time, it looks like for instructional benefits, we're over 100 million. Is that?
That is correct.
If my math.
That is correct, yeah.
That's.
Significant.
That's.
Yeah.
My math, okay, I'm good.
Yeah, the vast majority of our budget goes to people.
Right. We understand.
Yeah, right. We have to get insurance, right, for all these wonderful things that are happening, especially for Gaga. I just want to say, I'm kidding. I'm really not. Field trips.
We're talking blood in the sand.
I know, it's
think
really tough,
yeah,
Rob, I
that's
know,
right.
I know. But we need insurance for the folks that work for us, for the students that actually come to our buildings. And anytime anybody visits our campuses, we need to have insurance for that.
Right.
So again, if you think about the number of people that we serve, insurance costs for a district this size is very reasonable. Special items and unclassified, this will actually be part of the BOCES budget that the board will vote on in April. And so we vote on the administration costs and the rent, and then the assessments for sidewalks, sewers, and stormwater went up significantly from last year to this year. I think we're up like 28% or something.
But it's not a tax, right?
It's clearly a tax now, because the sidewalk one, they actually said at the Common Council, we're gonna raise that and then transfer money to the general fund. So it's clearly a tax.
Just kidding. Just
No, I mean,
the
it's-
English language is amazing.
It
I'm
is.
just trying to understand.
It's a
Okay,
tax.
right.
There we go. So we have to pay it because we have a lot of, if you imagine again our buildings, the sidewalks that we have that are in the city proper, and the space, the flat space that we have to manage our stormwater, we have to pay for that. So
Can we
we
tax
pay
the city of
back.
Ithaca? Can we tax the city of Ithaca? We can't do that.
No, didn't you hear the mayor's annual, he's been collecting the sidewalk tax for how many years now? And he's bragging that they're gonna actually do a couple of pieces of sidewalk by, Bell Sherman.
We appreciate that.
The first piece they've done around the school district in the 5 years, and he actually bragged about it in his annual.
There you go.
Not that we want to get lost in sidewalks.
No, it's okay, it's okay. I knew it was
Feel
one
free.
that,
We,
Brad would pay attention on that slide, so I knew that was coming. Debt service, so although we are going out for a capital project proposition, that will not actually affect debt service for a couple of years, because we won't be actually taking on any debt to pay for construction until it's approved by state ed and the construction actually occurs. So this is a representation of the debt that we have for prior projects. Years ago, when we did projects in 2007, we took debt out all along the way. It's the one thing that we really can borrow for as a school district. And so that debt, as it retires, right, we might take on new debt, which is why we're planning a new capital project. This right now, according to a schedule of watching old debt come off and new debt come on and principal and interest payments adjusting and state aid coming our way, this is determined for us by a very specific calendar that we utilize a fiscal manager for to make sure that, we have enough monies there and we're paying off all the principal and interest that is owed for debt service. So again, that's on the schedule, and this year it's going down a little bit. Finally is interfund transfers. Interfund transfers is the way that we pay for pre-K, okay? So essentially that's money that is transferred into another code, but it's approved by the voters. This is the amount of money that we use to subsidize the pre-K programs around our district. We do get some funds from UPK, and so this aligns with that, and then we utilize the voter-approved funds with that to pay for pre-K. We also use this line item to pay for things that are capital related. So we usually have $280,000. That was still to continue to address the replacement of a lot of the fixtures around the water. We're moving into the secondary schools and replacing those fixtures now. And then also we put in $100,000 for what's called a capital outlay project, which is a project that can happen in 1 year, in one building, at one time, and you get the state aid back on that year. And this year, we're actually, next year, in this budget, we'll be funding a project at DeWitt Middle School that will address the air handler units as well as the bleacher replacement. Because the bleachers are actually coming off the wall in DeWitt, and it's a safety hazard. So we're gonna be replacing those, all for under $100,000. I heard some yeses? Yeah. Is that good? Yeah? Good. They were bad, so we heard you. So it took us a couple of years. We're getting there. All right, we'll get there. It's this is like, we learn to be patient.
They are graduating,
I know. Come back though and see the bleachers. They're gonna be great. Okay, total budget. So if you added all those boxes together, prior year budget is what was approved by the voters back last May. This May, we're going forward. At this moment in time, this is the draft budget, right? So the work is still going. This is sort of, again, a moment in time study. Those line items that we just looked at will be scrutinized and they will be trimmed. This is probably where we will not land. We'll probably land less than this. The work is still going on. We're in the process right now of meeting with principals and directors to analyze their budgets, look at staffing, look at class sizes, look at enrollment, all those things, and really try to look at their equipment requests and supply requests and make sure that we have a really comprehensive budget.
Well, okay, so the change is 4.3%.
Mm-hmm.
And the tax cap, how does this function in relation to the tax cap?
There you go, Ann.
Okay.
So it was 2 ahead. So if you wanted to look at the increase to the budget and you look at actually the revenue, and we did this the last time together, we actually have, we do not know yet our state aid finality, right, in the sense that the budget is not yet released, the final budget is not yet released by the governor. So once the governor releases the final budget, this number may sort of tick up a little bit, and then we'll also look to see like what our revenue projections were from last year, and we try to adjust those. Sometimes it's difficult to try to find out exactly what we're getting in transportation aid and BOCES aid, right? So you just want to kind of get that as close as you can. But right now, our state aid is going up a little bit. Our property tax levy is set. It was due to the state March 1st. That's the calculation. We know that we were able to put in all the factors into the formula. We had capital exclusions. I had it triple checked. We submitted to the state that this is within the tax cap. And again, remember that misnomer of the 2% cap is not real if you have capital exclusions and you're actually doing work on your buildings. Those actually get pulled out. That's why we get to go a little bit above that 2% tax cap. All right, which is totally allowable by the law. We are within the property tax cap, but that 2% cap is really a misnomer for districts like Ithaca. Other revenue, these are all of the things like refunds that we get from BOCES services that we didn't utilize, any kind of health and welfare payments that we get from other districts to support kids like that go to New Routes and things like that. It's rentals of our spaces and our buses. I know Mike's going to be talking about that in a little bit. And so all the other revenue, Medicare reimbursements, that all comes together in that line. Pilots, thank you, Brad. Pilots payments in lieu of taxes, right? So properties that don't hit the assessment, but they actually have an agreement with the locality. right, that's in there. So that gives us sort of a real revenue number, all right, Ann? So that's sort of getting to your point. If we wanted to have a balanced budget without using any fund balance, we would have to strive for a budget that was less than what we got passed last year in real revenue. But we have been very mindful of the way that we've utilized our fund balance and reserves and our savings, right? Last year, we allocated funds to the budget to get us there, right? We have not used those funds in years past. We've actually put them in as cushions and we haven't had to dig into them, so we've been able to roll them forward. We're doing fund balance projections right now, so we'll know if we're able to roll over this full amount forward. To be able to balance the budget, we would need an additional $2.77 million from fund balance at this date and time. But again, the work is not done yet. Okay? So that, I hope that gets to your question, Ann, of sort of where that, and again, it's not a gap if you plan for the utilization of fund balance one time to, as part of this balancing routine, right? But if you don't have a plan to refund it, that's when it gets getting in trouble. Dr. Brown, I have that slide for you in terms of just the salary by unit. Yeah, I don't know if you wanted to.
No, the question continues to come up about where are the salaries going? I mean, that's a large part of our budget. So this is the first attempt to do something to help folks understand where it's going. We broke it down by bargaining unit. As you know, how many we have now? 5 bargaining units. So we broke it down. You'll see what the administrative salaries are, ESPs, ITA, substitutes, and managerial confidential folks there. So we just wanted this visual. We'll share this out more and more as we have conversations about what goes into the salary line of our budget, but this is one attempt at a visual.
And again, this is just the salary portion. This does not include the benefits. And also, obviously when you get the line item budget, you can sort of do the math yourself if you'd like to, they're all there. But this will continue to sort of update visual information like this, especially in our mailers, so that people understand sort of how does the district spend our money. And it is with people, it really is with people.
Yeah, when you put this out of the way, you need to spell everything out.
Yeah.
Oh, sure, yes, yes.
You got it all.
So that's.
You got it all in abbreviations
Yes.
that we understand, but.
My apologies, I will correct that before it goes live, Brad, I will absolutely do that for you.
We
No
may want
problem.
to put the raw dollar amount.
We can do that too,
Not just
sure.
the percentage, so.
Yep, yeah, this is just pulled from a spreadsheet, it's very easy to change, we can update that.
Yeah, no, I just,
Yep.
needs to say the
Yep.
Teachers Association.
Yep,
so
not a problem at all, we can do that.
Everybody knows what it is.
We can do that for sure. Okay, and that's it for me tonight.
And we always have to just remind folks that we don't vote on a tax levy limit, we don't vote on revenue, we vote on that amount that we wish to spend, and that is the expenditure line, it's the 134,595.
In the current track.
It doesn't have the zero.
It's,
No.
I was so happy with the 1 year,
I know.
all the years I've been here, that it did end in a zero.
$5 in
Yeah.
there.
I offered to throw in a $5 1 year, but that, it was, you can make gifts, you can actually make gifts to your local school district. And it is,
So
it
this
can
is
be.
still a work in progress.
Absolutely, this is where, again, to date, there is still a lot of work.
Going from 3.2 million to 6 million in fund balance is quickly,
That jumps out at me.
that's quickly,
All right.
and that's probably not sustainable.
This is, we have to go forward with a balanced budget.
No,
So
I
if
understand.
the process stopped today, this is where we would be.
Right.
Luckily, we have another month, to be able to work on this with all of the stakeholders,
We
right?
won't use that
So
line.
to do that.
That's the worst case scenario.
Yep.
Well, it's not a scenario, we won't use that
It's
line.
it's a work in progress.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's why thank you for inviting me every time to sort of give you updates as we go forward.
Well, we need those updates every.
But and I'll just say, there are folks who are questioning our compensation strategy, for example. We were very clear 2 months ago when we talked about our compensation strategy over the next 3 to 6 years. And we said that was an aggressive approach and that would cause us to look different going forward. It would cause us to use fund balance and it would look like fewer services and staff. And since then, there have been folks who said everything. We've heard it all, how you can't be that aggressive to you need to be much more aggressive. So you see right here, that $6 million in 1 year in fund balance is a shocker to folks in the room and will be to others if we were to have the strategy that we proposed 2 months ago. So for the folks who thought it was too aggressive, well, you have the data here to show that your perception is it was too aggressive. But if you want more, you will see some data here that speaks to how tough that would be for us to do. So as we heard today from our professional developer, you can use data for confirmation bias all day, every day. Whatever story you want to tell, you can use the data to tell that story. So you can see that we're aggressive, or we're not very aggressive here, depending on what you want to say.
But don't expect Albany to be the white knight here
No.
and to come in with
No, we'll get something additional, but it'll be a rounding error.
the funds will go elsewhere. That's why we rely on local support for what we are able to do in the Ithaca City School District to a large extent. And we will ask one more time in May for folks to support when we do. So good thing we have all those kids doing wonderful things that you were able to congratulate them on today, Dr. Brown. Thanks, man.
Thank you.
So what's this policy thing on my agenda? Sean's not here, but the policy folks are here. Pat?
Here.
I'm not,
Yeah, what's that?
It's the building and facilities.
Yeah, it was gonna
Mike,
be.
do you have the building and facilities? It's not attached.
Have you got it?
can,
I have a Google document that I can
Yeah.
project with the changes.
Facility.
Yeah, it's.
We have drafted some changes. This is not actually a policy, it's a procedure that's attached to a policy. Correct?
It's within the facilities use policy. This is a section within that. And the reason that this piece of the policy is coming before the board is because we've automated the facilities use system by using Master Library. And the computer program is not forgiving with certain things that are in the policy. And the specific thing that is in the policy that that we're asking to change is the 30-day requirement prior to requesting the policy, requesting the facility use. Prior to putting it in the computer, I suspect that the 30 days was a real loose 30 days, and now it's, the computer forces people to do that or override the policy. So that's possible, but it seems much more friendly to change the policy, and the suggestion right now is to reduce the 30-day requirement to 14 days.
Is that the only change?
It's, the language is consistent with being online and what you need to do online in order to do that. So most of the language reflects going online and what you have to do in order to request facility use. And nothing substantive has changed within that other than the 30 to 14 days. And our council recommended an indemnification clause at the very end.
that's pretty standard, I would think.
That's better.
Sorry. So basically, when before this was automated, people would sign up on paper and then they'd show proof of insurance. Now, you can't, you have to have an account, and you can't get an account until you've provided the insurance. That's how you get the account, and so we took out the word also. I mean, it's very picayune, and it's meant to reflect the difference between the automated procedure and the paper procedure. So,
So are we presenting
That
this for a
computer.
first reading?
For-
Is it- yeah.
I guess
what
so.
is this?
Well, I don't know if it's not a policy.
It's
we-
not a policy.
Well,
It's a part of the
policy.
It's within, it's not a procedure.
It's not a
Except we
regulation,
have
it is part
a
of
number
the
of
policy.
things where there is, in addition to a policy, there's a procedure.
You're moving in for first reading?
move this for first reading.
I will second it.
Second by Pat. Hopefully, there's not a lot more discussion on it,
I don't
but
think
are we good? And it's an opportunity to weigh in later, correct?
There will be a second reading.
Be a second reading.
There'll be a six.
So can I raise my hand?
Yes.
All right, all in favor? That is, we still have a quorum. Nicole stepped out, but it is us, and Nicole is out of the room. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you, Mike.
We always love having policy roll in at the, you know, without,
This is gonna make things so much better.
in star computers, that's kind of that 0-1 thing. I mean, you know, it's just, either is or isn't. So anyway, other discussion items? We have all night. We could talk about lots of things, but any
Facilities and finance on the 19th.
upcoming, right. And actually very important these days. Those are the work sessions on Tuesdays. Anything else, everybody? Are we good? Well, without objection, board members and young children can go home. So, thank you.